Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Schneider, Senior Editor for Variety, and welcome to the Variety Streaming Room. Today, we have the cast and executive producer of BBC America's Killing Eve. Season 3 of Killing Eve just ended its run on May 31st, so you can catch up on all episodes right now over at BBC America. We've got a great conversation with stars Sandra Oh, Jodie Comer, Fiona Shaw, and executive producer Sally Woodward Gentle. But first, let's take a look at Season 3 of Killing Eve.
Now you're back to work. You have to know, he's alive.
Why won't you give me a break?
You know, you really don't have to be so dramatic.
Season 3 of Killing Eve. There's a lot going on this season with this show. And look, I've got the cast, I've got the executive producer. This is how we do panels now, all in our own homes. New reality. So let me introduce virtually my panel. First up, of course, she plays Eve Polastri. She is the one and only Sandra Oh. Yeah.
So good to be here. Happy to be here.
She is, of course, Villanelle or Oksana. She is mysterious. I want to know how Villanelle actually spends her quarantine. It is Jodie Comer.
Hello. It's not very exciting. My quarantine is not very exciting. I'll tell you that much.
She is the one who I most want to have a drink with. She plays Carolyn Martin's Fiona Shaw. Yay! Cocktails with Carolyn during the quarantine. And finally, the executive producer of Killing Eve, Sally Woodward Gentle. Sally, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
So we're going to have some fun this time out. We're going to show some clips that each of you sort of will be talking about, but everyone can kind of jump in because these are some hallmark moments from season 3 of Killing Eve. And I'm not lying, from that first episode, a lot of stuff's going on, a lot of stuff that's making me kind of sad. You know, we certain characters are experiencing some fates. This is Killing Eve. Killing is in the title of the show, so that's going to happen, I suppose. But nonetheless, a lot's been happening on season 3. So why don't we get started by showing the first clip? This is the clip for Sandra. So it's from the very first episode, from the season opener. It's immediately going to make me sad because of a certain character that immediately appears as well. So why don't we roll it, and then we'll talk a little bit about this from episode 1 of season 3. Kenny.
Rest in peace.
Kenny.
The wonderful Kenny. Yeah.
You killed Kenny. Spoiler alert, by the way. But nonetheless, Sandra, let's talk about Eve at the start of the season. She's sort of hiding in plain sight. You know, she's working at the restaurant. You know, she's out there. She's walking the streets, but she's definitely you know, she's nursing some serious damage. Take me through sort of where Eve is as we start season 3.
You know, I think it's actually really quite explained in the clip where Eve is kind of healing herself and doing very, very small things like working in the back of a restaurant and making mandu, which are dumplings. But you get to see a little bit of the damage of the previous season, but like of being shot and all the relationship that happened with Villanelle that got them to Rome. You see that actually in the clip with the wonderful Kenny, Sean Delaney, because she's barely holding it together. So when he does push a little bit into like, do you want to come back into the hunt? She absolutely says no. And what I like about that is that even though Eve can seem damaged, she's drinking a lot, she's kind of living in a hovel, she's, again, working in the back of a restaurant, not wanting to be seen. She is actually, I think, her most independent because she is saying no. She says no to Carolyn. She says no to Kenny. And she says no to working in the front of the restaurant. So those are small little character developments, actually not that small, that I feel that we see even a different place of her actively saying no to things. But of course, for those of you who've seen this season, Kenny's death is what propels her back into the hunt, back into the relationship with Carolyn, working with Carolyn, and back into relationship with Villanelle.
Yeah, and I think what's telling too, and you see it in this clip, and you see it again later in the season, is that several times people say to Eve, "You're in danger. Like you need protection. You need someone to kind of look after you." And Eve's like, "No, I got this. I don't want MI6 looking after me because you see what happens when they look after people. But also, I got this. There is that new strength where she's looking after herself and feels like she can do this. So that is interesting. You're right to see sort of the mix of like she's nursing her wounds, but also there is this strength of will now that progresses throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think it's like she's gone from someone who was not necessarily scared of life, but she's entering into, I think, a deeper place of the idea of the type of fears that she's had before. It's not like she doesn't have them, but they don't have the same hold on her. It's just like, you can die at any moment. And she's starting to live from that place of like, well, I could die. Like, who's going to protect me? You can say that. I mean, honestly, I have so much anxiety about this pandemic because one has to think about one's own mortality and the mortality of people who you love. And I just feel like in that, Eve is starting to come to a place, particularly when you're going to see the end of the season between she and Villanelle. I feel like they're coming to a much more similar place of their point of view and how they see themselves in the world. You know what I mean? There's something that gets I think for Eve a little bit bleaker, but a little bit wider in dealing with the totality of life, which includes death.
Yeah, and it goes without saying that it's pretty telling when Kenny starts to ask her about Nico. Are you still in touch with Nico? Her mind was immediately Villanelle. That was her first thought was he was asking her about Villanelle. That's still the relationship that's sort of dominating her mind, I suppose, or her life. And the same goes for Villanelle, the opposite. Where it's a constant conversation. Even when these two characters are not together, it's always there. It's always sort of somewhere in the mix. Sally, talk a little bit about, well, first, let me ask you about the decision to kill off Kenny, a beloved character, and sort of, I'm sure the reaction was strong. Was there debate? What was sort of the mindset in deciding to start off with bang in season 3?
Well, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because we really didn't want to kill Kenny because we love Kenny. And Kenny, out of all the characters, the one who really called Eve on her actions, and she didn't like it. And so he was really important as a sort of moral peg for the show and for all the characters. And Sean, as an actor as well, has sort of grown exponentially through all the seasons. So the thought of him going was a real heartbreak. And we did sit around quite a lot going, are you sure he can't just be in a coma? And and then we go, no, but the reason he can't be in a coma is because it will be such an extraordinary sort of propellant for both Eve and for Carolyn into season 4 into season 3 that the only thing that he could do really was to die. And I felt as well in season 2, we didn't kill enough people that we really loved, and the time had come to go for it. And I think it does. I mean, I think what it does very organically is give Eve even more consequence to what she's been involved in. And I think that was really important for her character. And to see Carolyn in extremis and to have something that genuinely affects her was something we felt was desperately important too. And to bring back a sense in the show that nobody's safe. And you do that beginning of the season, I think was also really important. So in the end, I'm afraid Kenny was toast.
Sally, you already gave the quote, I think, of this entire conversation. In season 2, we did not kill enough characters that we love. You are evil. but that's okay.
Possibly.
And the thing is, we see more, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Kenny's not the only character that we love in Peril. But let's move on to clip number 2. This is Jodie's clip from episode 5. So
serious.
by the way, first off, shout out to the BBC America schedulers who made sure that episode aired on Mother's Day. I don't know how
I
know, but that was choice Mother's Day viewing. So
yeah, we need to know if that was a purposeful, like that was on purpose, or that was a.
I hope so. That was too good. That was too good. So Villanelle finally goes home, sees her mom. Jodie, talk about this episode. This was a little bit of a departure, a little bit of a different episode for the show, and gave you a lot to work with. Talk about sort of doing this specific episode.
Absolutely. I mean, I was so excited by the prospect because this has always been a mystery of Villanelle. Her past, her family, where she come from, what is this creature, and why is she the way that she is? So I always kind of knew it was going to be inevitable, but just how we were going to explore it was like, just didn't have a clue. And I think that, Sally can say the same, like the script actually changed a lot throughout the process because there's such a fine balance of exploring the past. We never wanted to kind of give reasoning as to why she is the way that she is. We're not excusing her, but I think it was really important to explore it because what I've realized as each series has gone on for every single one of the characters is that they are evolving and they're growing and they're changing into new things. And it was just a new avenue. And the family were incredible. It was more than I could have ever dreamed of, to go to Romania. And we filmed like 4 hours out of Bucharest and up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. So it was very immersive, and honestly, what the additional cast brought to their characters was so special. Especially Evgenia, who played my mother, because there had to be some deep-rooted connection between the two of them that was kind of explainable but very present, and I felt that the moment that I met her. And even in the scene where they meet for the first time in the house, I was so emotional. But I don't know if that's because I built up this moment in my head. But it was great to see her relax. Like, I think she feels strangely for part of it at home with these people who are so unaware of the outside world and express themselves very freely and care little for what people think. And I think she is so enamored by that. And the scene where they're kind of singing around the table, she as much as she at first doesn't want to get involved, she like finds herself not being able not to stand up and join in with them. So it was great fun. I think the thing that I've learned with Villanelle is the more we put her in situations where she's not comfortable, okay, she has her clothes and she has her apartment, actually where we find more truth is when she's thrown in at the deep end. And this was definitely the deepest end she's ever been in. Yeah.
I guess it continues the question of, was, the old nature versus nurture question, right? Was Villanelle created, or was she, is this just in her nature? And we see a little bit more of that, but it's still sort of a little bit of a question. Was she always this way? And is that what led to the battle with her mom in the beginning, that she saw this inherent evil in her? Or did that evil sort of grow because of her mom's actions?
Yeah, I think she was absolutely born the way that she is. I think, I think that is very true. However, I think Villanelle has this real sense or this urge to belong. And I think that is what she begrudges her mother for. That's the only person she can direct that at, is because even when she goes back home, she still doesn't find it. And this is the one place where, Constantine is keeps bringing up her family and kind of dropping these little kind of breadcrumbs. And I think she believes that this is where she's going to find it. And even at home, you know, she still can't get a grasp on it there. And I think that really, that's kind of a real punch in the stomach to her.
And there's always an interesting sort of like the Villanelle version of morality. You know, what she does to protect her brother. Ultimately, it kind of reminds me of the season when she was in the hospital and sort of mercy kills her. That there is this weird sort of like morality to some degree, like in certain people that she actually does protect. Sally, Jodie mentioned that this episode sort of went through changes. Talk about sort of how that evolved in sort of wanting to finally create the backstory that we've been waiting for this character.
Well, I think it's not really that the backstory changed that much in the episode, but what changed was Villanelle's exploration of it and her relationship with her mother and with the various part siblings and real siblings. And that's when, Jodie, knowing her character, working with Shannon Murphy, who is our extraordinary director on that block, and working with the writers, could explore that in a way that made complete sense to her. And if you're going to have an episode that is really quite separate from the others, you've got to give your all to it, and it's got to really feel significant. And it was really the hunt for the significance that was how it evolved, I'd say.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Fiona's clip now for Carolyn. This is from episode 6 and features some Constantine action as well. So let's check it out. Carolyn Constantine scenes. There's something going that chemistry. So Fiona, talk a little bit about this season for Carolyn, and obviously, given what happens to her son and what's her situation right now at MI6, she's going through a lot, but she's still very. I mean, she's all appearances holding it together, but we know that's not the case. What's sort of your take on where she is in season 3?
Well, something struck me because of seeing those other 2 clips, Michael, which is that all 3 women wanted an adventurous life. And it's just interesting seeing the clip, Eve was so talented and she's got stung by her talent. And Villanelle, having seen now her family, she obviously wanted to get out of that village life with the fun and everything. But even she has to pay a price. And Carolyn, who is much more aware of the cost of being in that kind of adventurous world, never thought that the price would be, I think, as close as it is. And I just feel that this season, Suzanne, our lead writer, was very good at trying to deepen the experience and making everything more personal. I'm sad if we lose too much of the mystery of Villanelle and Eve or Carolyn, but you do need to get behind their heads. And, so I think Carolyn, in this season, much to all our difficulty, I think everything we've had to act this season has been much harder than before. Actually, actually have to peel off the glamour masks, and finally you see what they're like underneath. So Carolyn.
And I do love. I mean, we continue to get little bits and pieces of Carolyn's history. When new characters pop up, we slowly are learning a lot more about her, and we still don't know everything about her. She's such a fascinating character to me, and seems like a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, and from the start, I certainly found that. In fact, on my very first day going out to the set, Kim and Jodie were doing a scene, and I went in to watch it, and my mind was blown. I just thought, oh my God, what is this? What we're in? It was amazing. The 2 of them were making sausages. Remember that scene?
Oh my God, from season 1.
Yeah, season 1. And
Yeah.
I don't even know what the show was, really. I mean, So I think these characters have both, we didn't plan them in advance. We sort of surf on them. They're amazing what they do. And it's been a huge privilege, great fun to explore them. But I don't ever want to solve them. I think everybody should have a mystery. Everybody, I mean, in the world should have mystery, and they have a bit of mystery still. I think there's a bit more to go, but certainly this year was the first year we were kind of they kind of chipped behind the walls of our minds.
And this year, Carolyn, we meet her daughter, so there's a new relationship in her personal life that we get to see, and you know, it seems almost as wrought as her relationship with Kenny, but in a different way.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Kenny and she share a slightly spectrum-like relationship to facts and figures, whereas, you know, Eve is a much more emotional, intuitive person, and Villanelle is her own thing. And Carolyn is just a tiny bit on maybe the spectrum of both of those women, actually, the other women. But she's done with Kenny very well. But I think her daughter is a highly emotional person and entirely intuitive. And they just are chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to
having Gemma playing the daughter.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's very hard for these new characters to just come in and be part of a history of a huge, you know, story. And she really stepped in very, very well.
Yeah,
and
Gemma was amazing.
It was great. And, you know, she had to be put up with being abused by me from the beginning. And she took it all in good faith.
two great new characters this season, because we haven't talked about Dasha yet, and you know that, you know, she's been an explosive addition. You know, the new handler for Villanelle, and you know, as much as we've learned about Villanelle's, you know, backstory with her family, that dynamic is so fascinating as well to me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Sally, you know, talk a little bit about these new characters that the show decided to bring on this season, and sort of what the goal was in sort of creating these two new, really interesting characters.
Well, actually, when we were first looking for a new lead writer, and we spoke to Suzanne, Dasha was the first thing that she pitched. Really, was an older character who has been part of Villanelle's creation, if you like, because you've got to remember she was Oksana first, and to have somebody who she could go toe to toe with. And Constantine, we've always thought about Constantine in the way that he managed Villanelle, a bit like a talent manager. It was just keeping everything together. You know, don't let them see what's going on, see how you're manipulated. And he sort of has indulged her, and he adores her. I think that he loves Villanelle probably more than he loves Irina. And to see Villanelle really have another character to spar against, I think and a different dynamic was really important. And then to have her inhabited by Dame Harriet Walter, who was sort of extraordinary and powerful and lithe and brilliant. And again, you know, we hope that she would bring a sort of a frisson of danger as well to it, and that her relationship, and that Villanelle's relationship was a far more scratchy one with her, and one that may or may not end well. So that was really important. And then Gemma, we just love seeing Carolyn in family, and we explore family quite a lot in this show, in this particular season. So to bring another secret that we didn't know about Carolyn to the fore, I think was really important. And actually the birth of Kenny, when Kenny was first imagined, Kenny wasn't Carolyn's son. That was something, actually, Fiona, I think you mentioned it on set one day. And then
we said he looks a bit.
It's me.
Was it you, Sandra?
We were shooting a scene in that tiny office.
Tiny office.
And both Sean and Fiona are quite statuesque. They're beautiful, tall people, and so the shot was they were here, and I was here looking at them, watching them. And I think Phoebe was on set that day. It was early. Yeah, it was
really early.
And I was just like, he looks like he could be her son.
Yeah.
And it was, oh my God, wouldn't that be hilarious? That'd be hilarious if it was that. And then Phoebe was just like,
yeah,
that's a good. and then lo and behold, a couple of episodes later, it's revealed in a
Talk about that scene, Sandra and Jodie, and sort of creating that scene. How difficult was it to sort of choreograph that? What's going on there in episode 3?
Well, I think that was one of the first initial kind of conversations we had, was the physicality. You know, we knew that there was this altercation, but it was like, realistically, how do these characters react in this moment? And that was something me and Sandra spoke about a lot, just in terms of what Eve is capable of, or how you would actually react in that moment of utter surprise and kind of disbelief. And then we worked with the kind of the stunt coordinator, and we got on a parked bus and we kind of staged it through. But I think it was a surprise, and I've definitely sensed that from the audience. But I think it was a moment that felt very right, and it's also genius of Eve because it completely disarms Villanelle.
Yeah.
It's the best possible move she could have pulled, because Villanelle is just like, whoa, is, completely taken aback.
Yeah. How about you, Sandra? What did you make of that scene and how that came together?
I remember when we first read that scene, I immediately felt, and I knew that was right. It was a right first meeting. It was a right way to get them back in, because it's almost like just the scenes between Eve and Villanelle are in their own bubble, like they're in their own world. You can be quite outrageous in some ways where they meet, what they do, because they are creating they're so enmeshed in their own dynamic. It almost doesn't matter what else is happening around it, as long as that they're dancing kind of truthfully together. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun shooting that with our whole crew on a moving bus. And I think it was just a great way to see them matched up together. You know, again, you see these kind of like the classic kind of slick Villanelle moves that Villanelle thinks that she's so comfortable in, right?
Yeah.
Like she's like, she doesn't know exactly what's going to happen, but you can see that she feels very comfortable and confident, kind of swag.
It is just really hard, but what what got going for you is sort of two extraordinary actors that you just crackle with energy, whether they're together or apart. And you know as well that both characters have awoken something else in each other, so that's constantly there.
We would expect both of those characters to do. And also, I mean, it was a shock. Yeah, a lot of times there's plenty of foreshadowing that those two are going to meet, but that moment you didn't see it coming.
Right.
I think that's what made it even more sort of just impactful. By the way, my favorite moment, we don't have a clip, but I just wanted to point out that I love the moment where when Villanelle and Dasha have the baby and Dasha just quietly throws the baby in the trash. And then the rest of that scene, there's an entirely different scene going on in the background.
Yeah.
Of people finding the baby, and Dasha and Villanelle are just having a conversation.
Yeah.
But again, like balancing as the show gets darker, balancing the humor and sort of the dark comedy with what's going on, I know is tough as well. But there are moments that you guys are still pulling that off as well.
Well, we realised as well that is much funnier in the wide. You don't want to cut to the baby. You just want to keep it back there. And that baby was a brilliant performance. It actually popped its head up at exactly the right moment as well. So it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you like that.
Well, we're running out of time. I haven't brought up Nico yet, partly because, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't gotten too far in the season. But you know, there's a lot more to come for folks who are just getting into season 3. Anything that any of you want to leave us with, your thoughts on sort of where things end in season 3 and sort of what, you know, we should be expecting long term with Eve, with Villanelle, and where this story is going.
You know, well, I'm curious to know where, at the end, where Carolyn is going to go and how Eve stays in contact with Carolyn. That's all I'm going to say. But I also say in a bit of a teaser, it's like I feel at the end of this series or this season, Eve and Villanelle are closer. They are very much closer, but not in the way that I think people would expect. You know, again, piggybacking a little bit on what Sally was saying, you know, well into the third season of this kind of dynamic needs to shift, and both characters have changed. And when they come to the end of the series, I just feel like the way that they know each other and in some ways depend or trust each other, it's a sense of trust that is outside of anyone else. Yeah. At least for Eve's perspective, yeah.
I think it's a sense of acceptance for Villanelle as well. Like this series ends so differently from the previous 2, like so differently. Like I think people are expecting one thing and they're gonna get another, and it's actually really quite beautiful and quite emotional. Some of the moments that these characters share towards the latter of this season. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how people respond to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Sally, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I was just going to say what Fiona said earlier is like, you know, we have peeled bits off the characters in this, but there is still more to come. And I think it's important. And also, as you know, people are so complicated. And sort of exploring that complication and exploring relationships, I think, is something that we will continue to do.
Excellent. Well, thank you, all of you. Congrats on season 3. Fingers crossed that the world will eventually get back to normal.
I
know. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Sandra Oh, Jodie Comer, Fiona Shaw, and Sally Woodward Gentle. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us, and stay safe. Wash those hands.
Thank you.
And, keep watching. If you haven't finished season 3 of Killing Eve, BBC America, go find it and watch the rest of it. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So good to see you guys. Oh,
yeah, love to see you.
Oh, gosh.